Hi, Phil Aston here from Now Magazine with another episode of Music Biz Chat. And this is where I look at the UK album charts and talk about things that I think might be of interest to you guys, especially if you're interested in CD and vinyl sales and what's going on in the world of physical music. So I'm going to look at that, and I'm specifically going to look at what I feel is a very welcome resurgence in guitar-driven music. I'm talking rock music, because there's been, over the last 3 to 4 weeks, more rock music in the album charts. And yes, I am multi-format man, and I do like all genres of music. But obviously, I was raised on rock, so I'm particularly interested in this. So I'm going to look at some specific bands that have been doing really well in the UK album charts, and one in particular has been doing very well in the US charts as well. And I'm also going to just give an overview of my thoughts on where we are with streaming and how I use it and how other people use it and how it kind of works for the industry, and obviously not necessarily for the creators of this fabulous art form that is music. Right, here we go. The data that I'm kind of referring to is from Music Week magazine. That's kind of like the industry magazine for the UK, and it's something I subscribe to. And what I'm referring to for this first part of this video is from George Gardner, who's the editor-in-chief of Music Week magazine. Now, he used to work, I didn't know this, he used to work on Kerrang magazine many years ago. So obviously in his heart of hearts, he likes a good guitar cranked up to 11. And every month in the main magazine, he talks about, how things go in the music industry. And it's nearly always the singles charts and, obviously young female vocalists and pop. But what he mentions in this month is Those Damn Crows, the Welsh hard rock band, who took many by surprise, he says here, by scoring their first UK #1 with their 4th album outing called God-Shaped Hole. Now, I mentioned this band because they were one of the first in the UK. They're signed to E8 Records, where they were kind of pioneering this new kind of K-pop kind of hybrid of a physical artifact, pictures and a box and everything, but without the music in it. Which, and I said, I think in a video, is this the future of physical media? And of course, the Now Magazine demographic were totally against this. As far as E8 Records are concerned, they think it's well worth pushing. But it says here that it didn't actually sell that many. It was less than 400 copies of this particular physical medium were actually sold. So the majority of it was still driven by CD and vinyl sales. I don't know about cassettes. The other band that I'm going to mention is Ghost, and I will be reviewing their latest album, who really have smashed through so many barriers, making it literally to the top of the Billboard charts and to #2 in the UK charts. Also, I'm going to discuss The Darkness and Dreams on Toast, and also other bands like The Architects, which are a heavy metal band from Brighton, who are doing very well. The other band that I haven't heard yet are called Sleep Token. They're signed to Sony. Sorry, they're not. They're signed to RCA, and they're also a heavy metal band. And it's another band that's kind of following a trend where they're masked up, so you can't kind of work out who the characters are. But the fact is, there's a lot of push being put behind this band, and they are a metal band. Now, we're not heading back to the 90s and the kind of glory days of hard rock and metal getting into the charts, and we're certainly not going back to the early 80s or the late 70s with the new British heavy metal. But what I feel from this is that guitar-driven music is again making inroads into the UK charts. The first one I want to mention is The Darkness. They got to #2 in week 14, and it was their best-selling album they've had for absolute years. They were behind Mumford & Sons. Mumford & Sons, I think, how much did they sell? If I can find it. Can I find it? Yeah, I can, yes. They sold 35,655 units to get to #1 in that particular week. Now, this is important because there was, out of that, 18 6,124 were CDs, and 7,400 were vinyl albums, 6,000 cassettes, stunning, 1,100 digital downloads, who does that, and 2,800 sales equivalent streams. But that album got to number one because of physical media sales. Sitting behind them in their 8th studio album was Dreams on Toast by The Darkness. They sold 27,800. So let's call it 28,000. Now remember that, just remember that. It's 28,000 and they got to number 2. Okay? Just remember that. I'm going forward now to week 18, where Ghost came in behind the Stereophonics at number 2, straight in at number 2. This is quite normal for rock. It even was going back decades where an album will go straight in because the fan base was fully behind it and then straight out again. It's quite normal. It's fine. The Stereophonics, how much did they sell? Let's have a look if I can find that. Yes, I've got it. 31, let's say 31,000. 21,500 CDs and 7,000 vinyl albums. Now, Ghost came in with 26,500 sales to get to number 2. So just remember that. If you've forgotten the Darkness number, it's okay. It's about 27,000, wasn't it? And now I'm coming up to date now in week 19. This is roughly where I am now. And the number 1 album is Pink Floyd, Live at Pompeii. So to get to number 1, Pink Floyd have done that. They sold 13,888 copies of that album, which was 5,000 CDs, 3,600 vinyl albums, and 3,600 Blu-rays, and 755 audio DVDs, and 384 digital downloads, and 307 sales equivalent streams. So that was 13,888, which got them to number 1. I think Sabrina was number 2 with 11,000 odd sales. So the reason why I want you to remember The Darkness and Ghost is that it's all about timing, isn't it? Because if either of The Darkness or Ghost album had been released last week, Pink Floyd would have been... In fact, if they'd been released all at the same time, Pink Floyd would be number 3, and Ghost would have been number 2, let's say, and The Darkness number 1, or the other way around. So it depends on when things arrive, doesn't it? So in a way, it's a shame that The Darkness didn't get a number 1 album, and it's a shame that Ghost didn't get a number 1, because based on the timing they would have done. Because I think for this week where Pink Floyd have got to number 1, I think that's the lowest number of sales to get to number 1 I think I've seen since I've been doing this. I think prior to this, the lowest was about just under 20,000. But to see like 13,800, 14,000 is low. Now, I know that if you're an older music fan, you can feel, oh God, is that all it takes now to get to number 1? Is that it? Well, I see it as it's a snapshot. And obviously, as I say a lot on this channel, we are a niche. Think of it the way that we talk in my recent video about, do you really love music? And many of us thinking we were the only ones that still bought CDs or a vinyl record. And some of that could be for some of us who are older and our friends have moved away or just aren't interested anymore. And this is what this is. It's a community of people with like-minded thoughts about music and how much it helps us and how much we enjoy it. Beyond helping us, it's just part of our lives, isn't it? But I know that there are so many other things kind of coming after our attention now. I mean, when I was growing up, what was the distraction? Football, and that was probably it, wasn't it? I didn't have a mobile phone account, which was about 40 odd, 50 quid, and I wasn't into gaming. It didn't exist. And when you look at the amount of money that's spent on gaming is so far ahead next to music and everything else, and streaming channels and all the rest of it. There's so many things after our money and our attention. So then roll that back to to a younger fan base, and how much money they have, and also how much room everybody has. For many of us who are older, we're lucky to have our own homes, and we may have small flats, but it's ours. We're not in a small bedroom upstairs somewhere with only enough space for so many records or so many CDs, or do we really even have room for a turntable? So for younger fans, the fact that you can have your phone and stream everything to a Bluetooth speaker is quite handy. But I suppose what I'm saying here, and how I look at things, because I do tend to, I don't think it's rose-tinted glasses. I'm not looking through the past, but I think this is good. I don't think that physical media is going to die out. I think it's plateaued out now, and it's actually growing for the first time. For the first time in 20 odd years, physical media is growing again. CDs are growing again. Vinyl is expensive, but it's still growing. But I think we're seeing a balance of formats, really, as younger music fans think, really like that band. It's a special release. I'll get that on vinyl. This band I really love. The CD is £12. I'm going to buy the CD. But that other band, they're okay. I don't like every track off the album. I'm happy to stream that. And I think it's a mixed match of the way things are done. But the great thing is, as I said at the very start of this video, is that rock music is back in the charts. Rock music is back in the charts. And I think a lot of us, for me, I love bands like Cats in Space, Son of Man, Deccan Traps. But all these bands also they're not teenagers. They're not people in their early 20s. It takes a long time to break through. And for any rock band, it's a lot harder for a rock band to break through than it is for a solo artist, because a solo artist there's just you, isn't there? Yes, you might have a team of writers, or you've got to have your social media stuff done, but a band is 5 of you splitting whatever money there is 5 ways, juggling day jobs and all the rest of it. And many of these artists are still doing other things, and there's no time off. It used to be the case that you got signed by the record label and they just took everything, all the troubles off your hands. You could concentrate on making the music and recording. They did all the rest. Not the case now. You come off stage and you've got to get behind the merch stall. You've got to get on social media. You've got to get all this stuff out. You've got to tell your stories. And I think it's not just a case of, an A&R guy going to see you and seeing what the audience reaction will like. It's how many followers have you got? What kind of influence have you got? What's the overall, what do you like on Instagram? What you like on, and you're expected to do that yourself. It's tough. And also there is a cynicism of older rock fans. I don't have that, not because I'm superhuman or I've not thought about it, and I could easily have it. I play guitar, so my brain is kind of wired musically in that way, so that I can detect an obvious chord sequence within seconds. But I'm open to the idea that rock music is fun. Rock music is empowering. Rock music makes me smile. It brightens my day, and I find it really enjoyable. And I think one of the things to always remember from my perspective is I've been on the planet for decades, so I've heard so much stuff. But in a way, what I always say in these videos is that sense of wonder and hearing an album for the first time. And I don't mean necessarily the classic album, but hearing the new Ghost album. And listening to that and thinking, imagine what it must be like to be 21 years of age, and you're going out into the world of rock music now, and you're hearing that Ghost album, and you're thinking, wow, this is just the best thing I've ever heard in my life. And it's even me to go, there's a bit of Blue Oyster Cult in that. And if you're 21, you're going, Blue Oyster what? It doesn't matter though, does it? It's the fact is that rock music is gaining a following. And I think outside of all the Instagram filters and algorithms and AI that's everywhere, I mean, there's some labels like Frontiers, record label, great label in the fact they support rock music, but I don't think I've seen a cover for an album by that label that doesn't look as if it's been generated by AI for months. I mean, surely there must be somebody who can, even take a photograph of the band and stick them on the front, anything. But I wonder whether there's a kind of leaning towards guitars, leads, and amps, and PAs and microphones as a bunch of kids look at each other in the same room as each other and talk about how they feel inside and crank that up through a Marshall amp and rock music. And I think that is important. It's real, it's authentic, it's exciting, it's life. So I think that's good, but it's also interesting to see how things are going in the charts itself. Vinyl and CD, great. Streaming. I just wanted to touch on this, not because lots of people talk about streaming, but I had a comment from somebody on my video. I was talking about, do you love music? And it was a guy called his name on YouTube is Quo Lizzie, and he was talking about how he grew up listening to music, and probably a similar vintage to me, where we bought singles and we only had albums at birthdays and Christmas, etc. And how we used to buy albums. It used to say home taping is killing music, and we used to. But really, what he's saying in his comment was the fact that home taping was never really going to kill music, whereas streaming has kind of changed everything. And specifically, he was talking about the singles chart, whereas when I was growing up, what was in the singles chart was released on a single, and it was just available then, and it was powered through the charts because so many people bought it. I know cynically we had quite a few pluggers going around and probably giving people extra copies and stuff, but overall that's what it was. Whereas nowadays, what can be in the singles chart can be something that just never budges. I mean, even in the album chart, I mean, I can see that Queen's greatest hits and Elton John, ABBA, Fleetwood Mac, Michael Jackson are there all the time. They're just always there. And I know you used to see Dark Side of the Moon in the charts for forever growing up, but these things are just never going to budge. And in the singles chart, you can have artists who've got like 10, 15 tracks in the top 100. I mean, that would never have happened. We might have thought in my naive early years growing up, oh my God, there's 2 tracks by Focus in the top 10. But that was very unusual. Very unusual. We didn't really have anything like that. Whereas in the singles chart now, it's basically things just sit there because with streaming, it's influenced not just by what's being released as a new track. You release a new track, and many people do this, a new track released, calling it a new single. But there isn't really a radio. I mean, how many people are listening to the radio? Streaming to me is the radio. I go to Spotify and Apple to discover things, to listen to something, to have a chance to decide whether or not I want to buy it. Similar to the, what I just said, if it's something I really, really love, I might buy the vinyl record. Something I really like, I'll get the CD. I'm not so sure. I'm quite happy to stream it or download it using my Apple Music account or something. But now, of course, that track could be in the singles chart because it appeared on a TV program in the credits, and it's been shared across TikTok, and people have heard it and just gone to listen to it, and it becomes a hit, even though it's not technically a single. And it could be something that was released over 30 years ago, but it will still arise in that kind of field. And the other thing, of course, is the labels love this, because they're the one with all the sync rights, and they're owning the publishing rights to this, so the money keeps pouring in. But for the artist, it very, very rarely gets above a trickle in many cases. Many younger artists, they don't even see the trickle. You could be an artist with 50,000 listeners a month, but that isn't going to enable you to make a living from this. The physical media side of music is so important. Streaming is not going anywhere. It isn't, because it is like a personal radio station. You can just go and compile the music you want to listen to, and you can stay in your safe zone and think, this is it. It might suggest something to you. You might go out and have a listen to that, but you may not. And so, what Quo Lizzie was saying is that, new songs now, it's very much harder for those to break through. People are very happy to listen to things across decades, across genres, and create their own kind of field as such. But I mean, if I look at the singles charts or even some of the dedicated charts in Music Week, whether it's the classical chart or the metal chart, some things like in the metal chart, I think Iron Man, the soundtrack, which is AC/DC, it's always in the top 10. It's been in there since I've been doing this, about 3 or 4 years. It never moves. It's just one of those things. I do want to say, though, that one thing that streaming, not one thing, but the main thing to me, whereas I think it's a good thing that the time which I live in, for me personally, is I can go off and listen to something. I remember, I haven't got it in front of me, but there's an album by a band called Armageddon that came out in 1975. It's just about to be re-released by Cherry Red. It was a great hard rock album that I saw reviewed in Beat Instrumental. Do you remember that magazine, anybody? And they were saying it was fantastic album. They were describing it like Purple and Zeppelin or something. And I wanted to hear this album because it had such a great review in Beat Instrumental. There was no review in Sounds, NME, Melody Maker, nothing. Just this Musos magazine. I asked my friends, has anyone heard of this album? No, never heard of it. Did it get played in any pub jukeboxes or pub discos? No, it didn't. Not at all. So you only had one option. You had to take a gamble and buy something you'd never heard before. And this is a time when my salary was £16.96 a week. I'm going to spend £3.50 on a record. Might not say much now, but then out of me £16.96 after I've given me mum and dad £5 and I've taken away £5 for, going out and the bus fares and everything. That was an investment. So what happened? I didn't buy it. So it would be decades before I eventually got that on CD. Now, I could have gone and streamed it and thought, oh, wow, that's really good album. I'll buy that. So this is the benefits of streaming. And for a new artist who is trying to struggle to say, I've just recorded this album, it's coming out on double vinyl, etc. How do I get people to find out about me? How do I get the audience to know I even exist? That is where social media comes in, because you can connect to lots of people. You can build up that audience. Well, how do you build up an influence? I always believe that an influence is one more than zero. Maybe you reach out to somebody like me and say, Philly, can you mention my record? And then put a link in, and then people go and listen to it. And you listen to the first two or three tracks and go, I like that. And you check out the band's website or their Bandcamp page, download a track. If they an offer, buy a CD, and it starts. And the good thing about this is that you can become self-sufficient. Bands like, I can't think off the top of my head, and When Rivers Meet, who I've interviewed twice, so I should remember that straight off. They're completely self-sufficient. They're signed to nobody. They've had an album in the top charts. They've been to various award ceremonies. They're a blues rock album, blues rock. And that brings me right round to the start of this video, that rock music is making inroads now, but bands are beginning to realise they can use the system to get out there and to connect more deeply to their fans. Instead of, having to write to some strange PO box number in the back of NME to see if the band would send back a kind of printed, signed photograph and say, thanks. You can now actually talk to the artist and say, I really love that track. It really helped me through a tricky time the other week. Thank you so much for doing this. And the band go, wow. And they're motivated and they reach out to you and say, thank you so much for your feedback. We live in interesting times, but I feel the times, yes, they're not the same. And what's that Sam Peckinpah movie, The Wild Bunch, when they're all getting together at the beginning, say it's not like the old days, but it will do. It's not like the old days. It's not the 70s. It's not the golden age of vinyl or the golden age of the CD, but it's a golden age of music. It's a golden age of a turnaround as music is starting to come back and people are appreciating it more. I love it. And I love doing this, and I love talking to you guys as well. And finally, thank you for all your feedback recently, especially about how, that you like to feel connected to something where you're not the only ones who still buy CDs and records Oh, I've got some great stuff coming up over the next few weeks. Really, really, really tapping into this. But anyway, rock music is back in the charts, and that's good. So thank you very much indeed for all of your support. Thank you for all of your feedback. It's great having you here as part of this journey for Now Spinning Magazine, for all of your support. Remember, please subscribe to that button thing that's coming up as I say this on YouTube. Check out the website at nowspinning.co.uk. Buy a t-shirt. If you become a YouTube member or a patron, you get 15% off all merch, and you also get access to the WhatsApp group, which is private for members only, and also the Facebook group, and you can come along to our own virtual pub called the Now Spinning Arms, which meets up twice a month via Zoom. So remember, music is the healer and the doctor. Please take care, all of you, and I'll talk to you all very, very soon.